Hey everybody! Today I'm going to give you a full tour of my steno machine, which is the Elan Mira. I was lucky enough to receive this machine as a gift from my A to Z teacher, and this is how it arrived to me in a suitcase. And inside I've got the machine, the tripod, the charger, a printer USB cable, and a spare battery. Here's the tripod, and this is how the legs fold out. They're a little bit weird because you kind of just lock them by making them straight. If you accidentally knock the middle parts a little bit out, then the whole tripod kind of collapses. But I've learned not to do that, and it's just fine. And the top has a little screw, and here's the shape of the mount. It's just completely solid, it doesn't have any moving parts. Here's the machine, and it's a bit of a chonker. It's on the heavy side, it's not super light, but it's not break your back heavy. It's just kind of heavy. I've got the regular keyboard. It's got all 23 keys. The S is connected, the asterisk is connected, and all the other ones are split. And it's also got the number bar on top. I don't have covers on my keys, and there are a couple of artifacts on the plastic on the top. Like some of them are a little bit roughed up or look kind of melted or something. That's just how it is, but it really doesn't affect anything at all. I also do not have wide keys, so all of these keys are the same shape. Some of the gaps, such as the gap between the asterisk and my pointer fingers, and the gaps between T and D and S and Z, are a little bit wider than is comfortable. Here on the back is where the battery pack is, and after investigating, I know that both the battery on the machine and the spare battery are both dead. They don't hold a charge. In here, behind this screw, I don't have a screwdriver, I'm too lazy to get one, is the backup battery. It's like a lithium battery and it's connected by wires. It's like white. I'll put a picture on the screen. It's also dead as far as I know, but I just leave it in there. Here is where the tripod fits on the machine, and this is the tripod release mechanism. And here on the side is a slot for your floppy disk, because that's how old this machine is. You would put memory in there to store your notes on, and it's empty. I don't have a floppy disk, and I don't need it because I just use this machine for real time hooked up to my computer. Here on the back is where the charger plugs in, and there's a compact flash card here. There's also the reset button, the USB port, and the serial port. And I don't use the serial port right now. And here's the compact flash card. It actually holds 32 megabytes. I know. I don't know what exactly is stored on there, but I just leave it plugged in and it just works fine. So back to the front of the writer. How do I know this is not an Elan Mira G2 or an A3 or anything like that? It's because the screen doesn't tilt. It's just there, it's just flat, it does not tilt. I have not found the exact name for this online, but even the Elan Mira manual that's online references a tilting screen, so I'm not really sure where this fits, but I'm thinking it may have been one of the first ones in the Mira line. If, however, you press these little tabs, the screen does open, and this is obviously not a position in which you use the machine, but you can access some dials from here, and I think that's really all you can access without further disassembly. And it seems like these are used for tensioning the keys. As you can see, there's numbers on the side, and they're all set to around 5 or 6, and some of them are on different settings. Since I received this machine secondhand from a professional court reporter, I figured why not just leave the keys on the tension they already are, and I can't go wrong. So since someone had already obviously taken the pains to adjust it to the best way it could, I just went with that, and I really have found no problems and never have wanted to adjust the tension. On the front of the machine, I've got 6 buttons that help control settings on the screen. The leftmost one of those is the power button. There's also a small screen in the middle, and I'll show you what that's for. And here's a little look into the inside of the machine and how the levers work. Comparatively, I do have to press pretty deep, and since these have no tactile feedback or anything, it is hard to feel when you've pressed far down enough with these keys, so I do tend to press them all the way to the bottom, but they do trigger much earlier than the very bottom. To plug this up to the tripod, all you have to do is match up the shape to the shape, and then twist until there's a little click, and then it's locked on. I've left this on the tripod for months straight, absolutely no problems. And to unlock it, all you have to do is hold the release mechanism open and twist the other way. Now I'm going to plug in the machine to the power, and all I have to do is put this box in the wall and plug it in. And I've also left it on the power 24/7 with no problems at all. I do this because all the batteries are dead, so I just need it to be powered by the wall at all times. And the only other thing I plug into my machine is the printer USB cable. It has a USB on one side that I just plug into my laptop, and this is the shape of the other side, and it goes into the back of the machine. Now I'm going to walk you through the screens a little bit. When I turn the machine on with the leftmost button, a screen pops up with the Elan Mira logo, and it does say copyright 2002 Stenograph on the bottom right, so that may give you an idea of the age of this machine. On the bottom of the screen are different prompts, and you can use the buttons below them to press them. I really don't want to bore you with walking through every single screen, and I don't know what all of them do, and I don't even need all of them just because I don't use this as a professional machine on its own that stores things in its memory. I really use this as a real-time device hooked up to my computer. There are a couple of ways you can get to the RAM, which is a small amount of memory on the machine. I don't know if this is the compact flash or not, or if it's just on the machine, but it does have the capability to store a little bit of notes without a memory floppy disk in there, and it just has those kind of stored in there. I don't really look at them or use them or need them, but they're there. It caps out at about 60 to 70 different files at a time, and I think just when things get too old, they just get pushed out. Now, the one setting I do want to show you that I had trouble with when I first got this machine, because it wasn't really in the manuals and I couldn't figure it out, is the mode. And so if you click mode, you can go between two different modes, and one is 8,000 and one is 6,000 plus. And don't ask me why it was named this way, because I just really don't understand. But 8,000 basically has the strokes on the screen translating according to the onboard dictionary that's loaded into your machine. But in 6,000 plus mode, it prints out your raw steno on the screen, one stroke per line, and it just goes up and up with each stroke that you make. And I personally prefer to keep it in the 6,000 plus mode, and it's definitely something you might want to set it to if you're in A to Z and you need steno notes, or really any beginning stage at all. It's just confusing because they aren't named steno notes and translated notes. There's also disk and diskless in the modes. I just keep it on diskless because I don't have a floppy disk in there. I'm not really sure exactly what the difference is though. When you start typing on the keys, it automatically starts a new document and different options show up. So you can use the scroll to go up and down in the notes if you want, but I haven't really needed to use that feature very much. And when you're done with a document, you just press the left button to end the document and it exits out. And from there you can start a new one if you want, but I usually am double clicking to one, exit the document, and then two, turn off. For the small screen here, you'll notice that it's continually doing a bar that's loading to the right, and that indicates that it's charging. However, because the battery doesn't hold a charge, it will never finish charging, so it's always like this. There's also a little bit of damage on this small screen. That's just how I got it, and it's really no big deal. The bars that make up the charging bar also represent each key on the keyboard and light up when they're physically pressed on the keys as you type. Since the machine is old, it can be hard to figure out which software you can actually use with this writer, especially if you're not using CaseCAT. So here's one that I found that actually does work, and it exports your dictionary to your writer if you have it in RTF format. So if you download the utility, it opens up like this, and you can locate your dictionary and press USB, because I'm over a USB connection, and then it just starts loading the dictionary onto the writer. And of course, this is completely cosmetic. It's only for when you're in 8,000 mode and you want to see what's coming up on the screen. If you're using the machine for real time, or otherwise exporting your notes from the writer, the dictionary on the writer doesn't matter at all. But just in case, this is how you can update the dictionary if you need to. Now I'm going to go through the steps it takes to connect your machine to the computer for real time. And with the USB connection, it should already be good. But first you're going to need to download these drivers from the website. It's kind of confusing because there's like a couple different pages and some of them don't work, but this is the one that works. I'll link it in the description. If you're using Plover, all you have to do is go to the plugins manager and scroll down until you find Plover Stenograph and install it. Mine's already installed, so I don't have to, but you would just press the install button, and then in the drop down, you'll be able to select Stenograph USB, and you should be able to connect from there. Now in this case, it's initializing and it's kind of stuck, and that just means it's frozen. Whenever this happens, the connection freezes. I just pull the USB out of the writer and plug it right back in, and that fixes everything. And you also have to have a document open on the writer for it to connect. So if the writer is on the blank home screen, it won't work, but if you type a few strokes, then it will connect to Plover. And now you should be able to use Plover as normal with the output enabled and type into anything you want, such as Word. So one thing about the connection is that you cannot have it connected to 2 different programs at once. So now I'm going to show you how to do it in DigitalCAT, which is the CAT I use at school and the one I know how to use. But because you can't connect it to 2 at once, I'm going to make sure to disconnect it from Plover first, and then we're going to go into DigitalCAT. The default way to do this is to start a new session. Once you've set up the session, you don't have to do it again. You can just initialize the connection from the Start Translation menu. In the dropdown, I know there is one that says Mira USB Real-Time. I haven't got this one to work, so strangely enough, you're going to have to select Stentura USB Real-Time, and that's the one that's going to work. After you press OK, it'll prompt you for your dictionaries, and then you can save the transcript file you're going to create somewhere on your computer, and then you're connected. However, a little quirk with the Mira, I don't really know where this comes from, but it won't recognize it at first. When you start typing, it'll say that the real-time has been disconnected. To fix this, type a few strokes first, and then go to Translator, and then Stentura USB New File, and then it will refresh it for you and reconnect it, and then you'll be on real time for real. And it will also dump out all the strokes that are on the screen so far. So if you have a big document going in your machine and then you connect it to DigitalCAT, it will spit everything else that was in there already all at once. And from then on, you can just keep typing and it'll show up pretty much instantaneously on the screen, just like with Plover. And on the right side will be the notes as well, and you can locate where those strokes connect to the translations in the file as well, which Plover doesn't do by default. The last couple quirks I wanted to mention about my machine is first, it has a little problem with the L key, and I really have not figured this one out. Sometimes when I press it just the same as I would press any other key, it doubles the output or even triples the output. It'll go LL when I really just pressed L, or even LLL, and in rare cases LLLLL. And this really feels like to me probably a problem with the electrical connection or whatever is using to actuate the key. I haven't found a way to type that makes it happen less often, and this really only happens when I'm pressing L by itself, which unfortunately is pretty often, but in full chords where it's not the only thing being pressed, it's not so much of a problem. I've also noticed that this was a big problem when I first started in the winter, and it got a little better over the summer, and I don't think it happened as often, but now that we're back to the winter, it's happening again, and it might have to do with humidity or something. I have not got the machine serviced in a while, but I'm sure this is something that I would probably address if I did, but for right now, I'm just dealing with it kind of like a batting weight, and usually just editing after I finish writing. The other quirk is also one for the winter, and it's that I get really dry and staticky in the winter, and I discharge on all my electronics everywhere. Now, the one you don't want to discharge onto is do not discharge your static electricity onto the tripod, because it will shoot the electricity up into the machine, and just that amount of static electricity is for some reason too much for it to handle. So it'll freak out, it'll start beeping like crazy. What I've done every time this happens is just press the reset button in the back, and it restarts itself, and it's all good. But that's just a little fun fact, so I've gotten into the habit of discharging myself on some other piece of metal before I get too close to my tripod. Overall, I hope this video gave you a little bit of insight into how my machine works and the intricacies of the technology. If you have any more questions, let me know down in the comments. I really think this is an awesome piece of technology. It's really old, but it really feels breakless and it feels like it stands the test of time, which I haven't heard everyone with the newer machines say the same for theirs. Would I recommend this machine? Absolutely. I think you should definitely go for a Mira if you have the chance and if you see a good price. I never feel held back by this machine. It is a little inconvenient that I do have no wide keys and that my L key repeats sometimes, but other than that, it works flawlessly, and I don't have any problems with physically typing on it or having it connect to my computers in 2025. So personally, this is the oldest I would recommend going. I did have classmates that used Stentura, which is the model before Mira. There's a bunch of different Stenturas, like 2000, 6000, 8000, something like that. And they all said it was very difficult to type on. It was like you were pounding down the keys. It was a lot of effort, a lot of physical strain. For them, it was kind of a need to upgrade their machine to something newer, and they felt like Stentura had been holding them back. So the most I would recommend for Stentura is really just the trying out stage of steno. It doesn't sound like you would want to go through all of school on it. However, I am confident with my Mira, and I do think you can go through all of school with it. So it definitely is a recommendation from me.